This might just be the most brutal movie of the year so far, in a good way. Let's dig into it. Welcome back, visionaries, to my latest video. This will be my review of Maharaja, the latest Tamil film starring Makkal Selvan Vijay Sethupathi. Now, this is a very famous and prominent actor in the South Indian film industry, and we're going to be talking about this movie now. I absolutely love this movie, so let's get straight into it. Here's a brief plot synopsis. Our main character Maharaja, which is not surprising because that's the title of the movie, is the owner of a saloon haircut shop, and one day he gets leave so that he can spend some time with his family, his wife and his children. However, during that time, there was a lorry that crashed into his house, which caused his wife to lose her life. So it's just him and his daughter. And his daughter was, according to them, was saved by a dustbin. So that was actually very funny at the beginning. So it was actually saved by a dustbin. So this dustbin is very precious to them. And one day the daughter leaves for some training camp at somewhere else. So she leaves for a week and she entrusted the father to take care of the dustbin. And it just so happened that the next day the dustbin goes missing and he has to go to the police officer to report a crime because his dustbin got missing. Now, one thing I really liked about this movie is the way the genre bends, the way the genre changes throughout the film. At the beginning, it looks like a comedy, a family comedy kind of film, with how the dustbin goes missing and he has to go search for it, and then he has to go to the police officer and the police officer are not buying because again it's just a dustbin, and he's saying that he's going to pay them 5 crores just for one dustbin, and they're just not buying it. And he also has a strong grip. However, he's just so adamant, and as the film progresses, it turns more into a violent thriller kind of film. And I really like the change as it goes. It's very gradual, so props to the screenwriters that they knew exactly what they were doing. So that's one of the reasons I absolutely loved this movie, the way the genre just gradually changes and develops throughout the story. Another thing is the fact that this movie does not hold back, alright? When it comes to the violence, it does not hold back. And there were certain moments that I wished they held back because it just got way out of control, especially with the sexual kind of scenes. I thought there was way too much going on. But what those scenes managed to achieve is that they made me hate the villains of the movie so much. They just made me hate them so much. And one of those villains, they tried to make him a bit more complicated than he is. At the beginning, he's like this thief, this burglar who will kill people, yada 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 and all that. But after that, they show us a different side of him, and I really appreciated what they did there. It really made me confused at first. Like, it makes the character more complex, so I really appreciate what they did there. So that's something else as well. To add on, humans are complex by nature, so it really makes the character more realistic. And the action scenes are just violence, man. They're just hyper violent. They don't hold back. And at the beginning, I was also very confused because there's a lot of comedy going on surrounding the main character Maharaja. Then there are all these side characters who are these gangsters supposedly and are beating each other, so I don't know how that was going to mesh up at the beginning. So it kind of felt a bit confusing at first, but over time they managed to mash up all these storylines together, and that's something I really like. And they did it by using this technique called non-linear storyline. This is something Christopher Nolan uses in a lot of his films, and it was also used in this movie here to make the plot twist more revealing, more shocking for the audience, to surprise us more. And all the revelations that happened was just, at some point, especially coming to the nearing of the film, was just mind-boggling for me personally. And I really liked how they handled all these elements together. It didn't feel confusing either. I was able to keep up with it. Usually when it comes to non-linear storyline, the writers really need to be good at making the story feel less confusing, because non-linear storyline can go all over the places and it can get really confusing. But here it is very easy to keep up with the pace, keep up with the story, like what this character is doing, what that character is doing, what these other characters are doing. So there are 3 main chapters here: the hero and him trying to find his dustbin, the villains, whatever burglary they were doing or thievery they were doing or other mischievous acts that they were doing, and there were the police officers who are trying to scam the hero by trying to create a new dustbin that looks like its original one just so that they can get the money. So they're not really doing a good job. So all these different components are just working so well together, and they are really tied in very nicely. And literally, I mentioned this earlier, how you really hate the villains to your guts. It really happens in this movie. Like, you hate the villains in this movie. One nitpick I have regarding the villains in this movie is that they don't feel menacing enough. Yes, they are detestable, they are abhorrent, you love to hate them because of what they did to the poor girls in those houses. But they are just not menacing because they are just normal burglars. They break into houses, steal your jewelry. That's the most scariest thing they do, and I don't feel that scary at all. And by the end of the film, of course the hero is going to defeat them like it's nothing. It happens in almost every South Indian film right now where the hero just easily defeats the villain. So they don't pose enough of a threat to the hero, and that's what I really disliked about this. And that's my main critique regarding the villain. Take Griffith for example from Berserk. Yes, we detest him. He has done some abhorrent stuff. We hate him. We love to hate him. But he's also menacing because he challenges the hero to reach new heights. And that's why he's considered one of the greatest villain in that specific medium. So they are very simple, but what this movie did is that one of those villains, they turned him into a more complicated, complex, morally grey kind of character. Actually, I wouldn't go so far as to say it's morally grey. I would say it's just a bit complex. They're giving him a bit more complexity. That was really a nice touch. And again, and the plot twist, as I mentioned, they don't happen out of the blue. They actually showed us clues and red herrings to show that these plot twists that happen later in the film actually makes more sense. And that's how you make a good plot twist. You need to give hints of whatever you're going to reveal. And they actually provided those hints in this movie very well. So they really made me like the characters, and Vijay Sethupathi as Maharaja plays this character who is kind of worthless because he's always forgetting things. He's not very good at his job, even though it's just cutting hair and saloon. He's not good at it. So even his boss calls him useless. And his daughter even bosses him around. So that's how he is. It really reminds me of my own father because of how clueless they can get. I was able to relate to it to a certain extent as well. The way he behaves is very similar to the way my own father behaves in certain sense. So personally for me, it was also very relatable. This normal guy who just wants to get his dustbin back. Now I'm not going to give away too much or reveal too much about the plot, but when the plot gets crazy with the non-linear storylines intertwining with each other, it gets crazy, trust me, in a very good way. Vijay Sethupathi, again, this might just be my personal favorite performance of his that I've seen in any of his movies. He really excels at playing this character. And the comedy elements, let's talk about the comedy elements. I haven't talked about that yet. It's really funny. Apparently he has this strong grip. So whatever he holds on to, he won't let it out. That's how strong his grip is. So there can be like 100 people trying to pull him back, and he's just hugging the wall. And instead of him coming out, even though there are like 100 people pulling, the building falls down. So it's really insane and really funny as well. And when he goes to the police officer to report the crime, he's just repeating that same old story again and again until it gets annoying. Usually when things like that happen, it gets annoying, not funny. But in this case, because of how the actor Vijay Sethupathi portrays that scene and delivers that line, it's actually very, very funny. It really reminds me of this other South Indian film where the character just keeps repeating again and again the same story. And one more great thing about the movie was the ending. It's not like a normal revenge story where this guy just kills another guy, right? There's something symbolic in this revenge story. It really reminds me of Furiosa. This other action revenge story where Furiosa is trying to kill Dementors. And the ending of that movie also felt very metaphorical and had a lot of symbolism inside it. And this movie is very similar as well. It has a lot of metaphors and has a lot of symbolism. I think this is the kind of revenge stories we need more of right now in movies. I think there are some Korean dramas that also follow this style where they have these kind of metaphorical endings with a lot of symbolism as well. Yeah, and I really loved all these elements. Of course, I do have a few drawbacks. First and foremost, the female character in this film, apparently the PE teacher is here, and they actually spent a lot of time with her character. Like, we actually see her in her house, spending time with her mother, doing her prayers and seeing whatever she does in her home. So I was hoping that she would have a more major role to play, but I was frankly disappointed because she's just another side character who didn't even have to be there in the first place. She's one of my disappointments. Another disappointment I would personally say is that there are some things that I wish they could have developed on. So I won't give too much spoilers, but at the beginning of the film, there was this one scene in this principal room where the Maharaja's daughter is being accused of I forgot what exactly it was, but she did something wrong and she was accused by the principal. And then later the PE teacher comes in and he says that this was the boy who did it, it wasn't this girl. And then he tells the teachers around him, Oh my goodness, you guys can't even do a proper thorough check before accusing someone as the perpetrator. Basically, they didn't check properly, and I was hoping they would develop on that further, and I thought that they had potential to develop on that further as well, because when they were trying to find the dustbin, right, I wish they could have shown more of the investigation side, how they did all the investigation, the checks, to show that it was legit. Like, because there's this one guy, there's this another storyline where there's this one officer trying to investigate, going to these other areas and then seeing the cell phone calls, trying to investigate what the hell is going on the more legal way, compared to these other police officers who are doing something illegal and completely wrong. He's doing things the legal way, and I was hoping they would show us more of those investigations, but they just rushed by those so quickly that it was kind of underwhelming. I was hoping more of that because they could have developed on this idea further. And I also wish they could have toned down on the sexual parts of this movie, the sexual kind of things that were going on in this movie. I wish they toned those down. Like, I get you're trying to make these villains as despicable and hateable as possible. You want the audience to detest them. But if you do it to a certain extent already, we will hate them by a lot. You don't have to do it too much, you know. I think they went overboard here by a bit. And again, I know some of you are going to say it's a fictional story, not real, and so many people are going to disagree with me on this criticism, but this is just my criticism. I thought he was taking things too far personally for me. If you don't agree with it, I'm completely fine with that. When shit was going down with those kind of stuff, I couldn't even look. It was that horrible. It was that horrendous because of what they were doing, the characters were doing. One last thing I wanted to add on was the side characters with the IQ of -1000. Why are there so many dumb characters in this film? For example, there's this one curly hair fat guy in this movie who lost his cooling glasses that was on his bike. Again, it's just cooling glasses, just one glass. And he got so angry that he had to come to the shop and beat the shit out of the owner. Then he beat the shit out of the other guy, which is very stupid because it's just a cooling glass. The next scene, he was seen at a bar that was heavily embellished. So you can deduce this guy is clearly quite rich. Yet he went to beat people up just for cooling glasses. That is very, very dumb. For my next example, I don't want to give too much spoilers away, so I'll keep it brief. The main reason why our villain accuses the hero of his problems was actually because of a dumb mistake that the villain himself made. So that's my thoughts on this movie. Honestly, I will give this film a solid 8 out of 10. I really enjoyed this movie. If you're looking for a great revenge story with a lot of violence, this is it for you. That's all I have for this video. If you like this video, click the like button. If you want to see more, subscribe to my channel. And see you guys next time. You guys are always the best.